Well, ladies and gents, this is Unbiased History, the PAX Romana by the channel Joe Hattie. Last video we saw the Mad Emperors where basically everybody just stabbed each other. Too much backstabbing, too many emperors changed. I hated that, lots of politics. It's basically the monarchy is in ruins because everybody's just killing each other to become the emperor. It's like damn. Pax Romana just means Roman peacetime or something like that. It basically started with the Augustus and it will end with the Commodus. The gladiator guy with the green leaves doing this and that. Apparently that guy F it all ups and it's the last emperor, and that's the end of Pax Romana apparently. I don't know how this is Pax Romana because last time we saw how emperors are killing each other. Everybody's backstabbing each other and that's supposed to be peacetime. I get it, Pax Romana peacetime means just, no battle between other countries, I guess. That's the point here. Not the internal battles, the outside battles. There isn't much there, so that's why Pax Romana. But damn, last video we saw how Nero just died. And I think with him, the Julius Caesar bloodline ended. Now whoever is going to come is going to be some different emperors. So Julius Caesar's bloodline is ended, I think, with the Nero. I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure. Now the new dynasty will rise. Soon we will come to the gladiator guy Commodus, and that will be the end of Pax Romana. I don't know if in this video he's gonna feature that or this just in the middle just name Pax Romana, because I'm pretty sure Pax Romana started with Julius Caesar or Augustus. I think it's with Augustus, but only because Julius Caesar wasn't an emperor. But let's just say Julius Caesar. So Pax Romana basically started with Julius Caesar, will end with Commodus. So yeah, let's watch this video. And people, remember, if you like my reaction, don't forget to like and subscribe. That will tell me which type of video to react to more, and I'll really appreciate your support. And hit the bell notification, because my uploading time is not fixed. I could upload at night, I could upload at day, afternoon, I don't know. So hit the bell notification. I know lots of people are scared, like I'm gonna hit the bell notification, then it's gonna upload 10 videos and it's gonna just swarm my notification. YouTube only sends 3 notifications per day from a channel, so don't worry about it. Hit a bell notification. Alright, let's watch the video.
Come on, go back and actually read the thing.
Okay, it says nothing but words were decided after false rendition of historical events. Why is he giving disclaimer all of a sudden? Did he get lots of backlash after some past videos?
Come on, go back and actually read the thing. If you did, congrats! For today we will be covering the middle days of the Pax Romana, a golden age of unrivaled peace and prosperity. Which brings us to a civil war.
Yeah, okay. So he just said middle days of Pax Romana. So Commodus is not going to be featured in this video, I think.
Where we left off, with Nero having died with no heirs, that is, the treacherous Praetorian Guard declared support for Galba, at the behest of the Praetorian prefect, named Vitellius, whom offered huge bribes in his name. And just after he had the Senate acclaim Galba the emperor, he took Spurus as his own wife, and then the fucker just gave in to powerlust, and demanded that his men proclaim him the new emperor, claiming to be the illegitimate son of Caligula. But the bribes Nifidai's promise proved to be his own downfall, making his men kill him and wait until Galba paid them. Speaking of whom, he was still in Hispania, begrudgingly preparing to leave for Rome despite never wanting to be emperor. But you know who wanted to? Otho, that fag Nero had exiled to Lusitania. Apparently he had heard a prophecy that he would one day become emperor, which he interpreted as Galba one day adopting him as his heir. So he began sucking Galba's cock non-stop, but he never did get noticed. He did gain the favor of Venius, Galba's advisor, but that wasn't enough, not that he knew. But when it came to Galba's character, the man was a hardcore disciplinarian. As he consolidated authority in Hispania, he had every single dissident executed, along with their whole families. As he marched his way to Rome, he fined or sacked every single city that didn't show him strict loyalty. And as he neared Rome, he was faced with a newly raised legion of ex-sailors, whom demanded him to recognize their new status as legionnaires, so he had them slaughtered for insubordination. And the survivors decimated near the Milvian Bridge. Keep this place in mind. Galba's fame as a disciplinarian stretched way back to Caligula's reign, when the god emperor sent him to straighten up the Rhine legions, which he did so effectively that they held a grudge against him for over 2 decades, which they were allowed to...
Yeah, I've seen that coming. He's too strict, so he made a tons of enemy, which in the end is going to fuck him up apparently. That's what happens when you have this kind of strict leader in the position. You make too many enemies and they just stab you in the back.
To manifest after Galba appointed Aulus Vitellius to govern the Rhine legions. The stereotypical hedonist fat fuck. He ate 4 full meals a day, threw non-stop parties during duty, and used his scouts to hunt down delicacies across the empire to stuff his fat throat with. To assist Vitellius, Galba sent Caecina as a legate as well. And if you think Arminius was a traitor, then take a hold of this pleb.
Well, I blame Galba. Why did he put him in charge in the first place?
The second he got in the Rhine, he began embezzling and taking bribes non-stop. And fearing Galba's rightful retaliation, he plotted together with another legate, Valens, to mount a revolt. Soon after, they had their men show up to Vitellius and proclaim him the new emperor, and he just went along with it. Meanwhile, Galba was getting more and more hate from the senators and praetorians, the main reason being that he still didn't bribe them for their support, which, as you remember, he never did promise to do. And when the old man Galba finally resolved to name his heir, with Otho by his side, he chose a man named Lysianus. And Otho was livid. Drowned in debt and resentful like mad, not a week later he approached the Praetorian Guard, promising them their bribes, and ordering them to kill Galba for him. Later, a conspirator would come to Galba exposing Otho's plot and claiming to have killed him. Mad at the chaos of the situation, he was lured out alongside Valens and Lysianus, where Otho had the Praetorian Guard attack them, killing them all. And while the Praetorians kicked Galba's head for sport, the Senate readily acclaimed Otho the new emperor, with Sporus later taken as the imperial wife. Again. He then started going over Galba's mail, only then finding out about Vitellius' revolt against Galba, who had now transferred to him. Otho offered to marry Vitellius' daughter, but he was too busy stuffing his face to hear, sending both Valens
Man, what a bitch. So he just wanted to become an emperor but didn't know how to be one, huh? He's afraid of everybody, just ready to sacrifice his own daughter to marry to that fat idiot there. So just so he doesn't, attack him. That's not how things work. If you're top of the mountain, you can't just stay in fear and offer people and just stay in power. Everybody wants power. If you're weaker and somebody's stronger, they are going to take power from you. That's how it works. You can't just offer your daughter to marry him. That just clearly shows that you're afraid. Of course, he's going to topple you over.
and Caecina south with his legions. Despite being severely outnumbered, Otho had the luck of Paulinus being in Rome at the time, sending him north with what men he could muster. Paulinus then marched north, holding his position near Cremona and waiting for Balkan reinforcements. Otho then sent the imperial fleet to raid the southern Gallic coast to distract Valens' army, but all he achieved was killing Agricola's mother. Caecina then arrived in Italy, attacking Paulinus and getting promptly beaten back to Cremona. Valens then arrived with reinforcements, alongside 60,000 German auxiliaries. Paulinus kept holding his position,
60,000?
but then another Othonian general, Titanius, took over and attacked Cremona, contrary to Paulinus' advice. The Othonian forces were then defeated, and having heard of the loss, Otho, seeking to repent for his crimes, killed himself during the night, so he could bring the civil war to an end. Caecina and Valens later captured Paulinus.
For God's sakes. The thing that was going on in the last video is still going on right now. Everybody killed each other. Then they're like, you know what, Galba gives us money, so let's go make Galba our emperor. Galba came, somebody stabbed him in the back because he was too strict and all annoyances. That whoever came to power just came into power and then realized that he's not fit to be an emperor because he's scared. He just got screwed up everywhere and then killed himself. Now another emperor will rise. This is too unstable. By this point, it's wondrous that how people just didn't band together and think, man, these emperors can go F themselves. Constantly power-hungry people are coming and dying in less than months and years. This is stupid. Let's just call it republic. I'm astonished that people didn't do that. Because there are too many emperors. I mean, if there is a historian here that keeps all the tabs, he would be going crazy. Okay, who's emperor now?
And, lying through his teeth, he convinced those plebs to release him, living his last days in peace. As Vitellius marched south, he passed by the battlefield to smell the fresh blood, later mocking Otho's grave and continuing to throw parties non-stop. The Senate then bent over and proclaimed Vitellius the new emperor, who made himself Pontifex Maximus at the anniversary of Brennus' victory before the sack of Rome, and then planned to have Sporus publicly raped in a gladiatorial arena, but he killed himself to avoid the shame. May he rest with Nero. So much food Vitellius would eat.
Okay, so that was that guy that Nero took. Okay. This is the reason why the saying comes that all Romans were, somewhat gay or something. I understand that Nero was into that. Alright, sure. Nero was, around that time people want that vogue. So, yes, Nero married lots of women, but maybe he was gay, so that's why he had him. But why is these other emperors are taking him? Is that somehow the symbol of being an emperor? Who knows?
While ruling, that he literally bankrupted the empire, later resorting to inviting his debtors to the imperial palace, having them killed and their property confiscated. And speaking of debts and money, the Jews were still revolting in Judea. While the emperorship changed hands every few months, both Vespasian and his son Titus were busy ransacking the rebelling Semite cities to the ground. Not by their own doing though, the Jews just kept mass killing themselves every time they breached the city gates, go figure. The last bastion of Jewish resistance was in Jerusalem, but as they prepared to take it, news of Galba's and then Ophos and then Vitellius' ascension sequentially arrived to the east, making them delay their efforts. Having some plebeian land whale as emperor was unacceptable to the eastern governors, among them Misianus in Syria and Alexander in Egypt, whom proclaimed Vespasian the new emperor.
Alexander the far greater one. It should be Alexander the greatest one.
Convincing the Danubian legions of Illyria, Pannonia, and Moesia to join them. Vespasian had never lusted for power, but he changed his mind after discovering an old Trojan prophecy, wildly popular in the East. It said, "There will be a time, in the world's darkest hour, when a divine hero will emerge from the sons and daughters of Troy, conquer the lands of Judea, and become the ruling savior of the world." Vespasian could see how well it fit to his current circumstances, and with the blessing of the great heroes of old, Vespasian embraced his new destiny.
Of course he
Among
did.
the Danube's legates was a one named Primus, whom took his legions and marched on Rome without orders
Okay.
for
Transformers reference, okay.
surprise attack. With Valens being sick by then, Vitellius sent Caecina to face off Primus, which would prove an error. Accessing the advantage Vespasian's legions had, he contacted Primus to negotiate a betrayal, but his troops found out and had him locked away in the camp. Reinforced with Vespasian's legions, Primus then faced off the Vitellian forces. Engaging in a long night battle, the sun later dawned on them. The Vespasian troops were invigorated by it and turned to greet the sun, which the Vitellian forces took as enemy reinforcements incoming, so they fled the field and left Primus victorious.
Oh, for the love of God, this is... Lots of battle are just cartoonists for the... They just, they just moved away to, greet the sun, and other people thought, the reinforcements are coming, and just ran away. This is so stupid, man. Deceptive... Oh, okay. Transformers reference again.
Primus then continued to march on Rome, and with more and more provincial governors declaring allegiance to Vespasian, our focus goes back to Rome, where Vespasian's youngest son, Domitian, finally comes into the picture. Born 12 full years after Titus, Vespasian had his young son raised by his wife and daughter, whom would both tragically die, leaving Domitian under the care of his uncle Flavius, whom raised him with the help of Nerva, a close friend to the family. Being an INTJ to the core, Domitian chose to spend his days alone, reading about history and coming to venerate the first Emperor Augustus as his role model, occasionally pinning flies that flew by, as Minerva warned him they were up to no good. So yeah, Domitian gave much respect unto the gods, especially the goddess of wisdom, whom retributed it by acting as his guardian deity. Domitian was present in Rome as 3 different emperors took over the city, and witnessed how the Senate bent over to their new masters every time. And as Primus approached Rome with his legions, Vitellius tried negotiating with Flavius for a cowardly surrender. But Vitellius' men refused to give up, putting Vitellius in custody and sieging Flavius up in the Capitoline Hill. Minerva then helped Domitian to escape, while his uncle bought time for him. Later, Vitellius was brought the corpse of Flavius, being deprived of his last out. Having arrived at the gates of Rome, Primus, hearing of
You're not much of an emperor or claim to be an emperor if you don't have grips on your own men. Your own men, just openly say no to you with whatever decision you made. That's why of the past people are like, I'm the bloodline of gods, or I am a god, because of this reason. So people would just, unconditionally follow the orders. In here, that fat guy apparently wanted to use that Flavian as a leverage to be safe, and their men like, no, nothing, just kill them.
Flavius' death and fearing for Domitian's safety, he ordered his legions to take the city. He eventually breached the walls, and during the chaotic struggle, a fire would break out into the city and consume the temple of Jupiter himself, which he wouldn't soon forget. As Vitellius tried to flee, he went to the palace to get as much food as possible with him, only to be found and taken by Primus' legionnaires. He would be later brought to the Roman Forum, where he was beheaded and his body thrown to the Tiber River, further angering Tiberinus, but the river was beyond polluted by then.
He put that sign there, Cyber River, dumping communists not allowed, because he was tired of all communists getting infected into his river.
Vespasian then returned from the east and was proclaimed the new emperor by the Senate, because, of course. Later, as he visited a temple, he was stricken by a divine vision. As two plebs came to help him, Vespasian accidentally conjured a divine healing spell, curing them of their injuries. From there on, Vespasian...
There you go, see, claiming that I'm a god. That's just, you have to do that if you want people's unconditional love and, unconditional way of just following orders. Otherwise, people just backstab you. Just ignore your orders.
would be recognized as yet another divine emperor. But while his father worked miracles as the new emperor, Titus was left in Judea with the task of pacifying the province and retake Jerusalem from the rebels. He had 4 legions at his disposal and several auxiliaries, against 20,000 fractious Jews behind the walls. Once Titus arrived, he tried scouting ahead, but was suddenly raided by the Jews, slaughtering several Semites to escape with his life. He then began building a forward camp, but then the Jews raided again, but he repelled them and got it built, encircling the city and officially starting the siege. The legionary siege weapons were constantly harassed by the Jews, but Titus fended them off until the walls were breached. He led his men through the breach, but the Jews had retreated to the second set of walls, and the Antonia fortress behind it, and the Temple Mount walls behind it. After a long back and forth, Titus reached the second walls, and laid siege to the Antonia. As the Roman siege weapons raged, the Jews were up to their tricks again, digging up a cave underneath and setting fire to the foundation, having it collapse on the Romans. And after more back and forth struggles, Titus pulled a Caesar and settled with having his legions compete in building a wall to encircle the walls of the enemy, letting the Jews starve to death. The Jewish factions began to conflict between themselves, ending with the Zealots destroying the food supplies of the city, ensuring that they would all either die fighting or die starving. And as Titus crucified his Jewish prisoners alive, Jupiter conjured up a storm to smite the Semites, having the Antonia fortress collapse in its weakened foundations. Titus didn't let the chance slip and ordered a charge uphill, but the Jews defended it fanatically. So, the next night, a band of 24 legionnaires sneaked into the Antonia, killed the defenders and sounded the horns. Titus then came with his forces and gained a footing in the Antonia.
Because of course Jews sleep while standing up, of course.
Having it destroyed to facilitate a breach. But that didn't mean the Jews were anywhere near giving up. Titus then ordered an assault on the Temple Mount. The Semites used their Jewish magic to set fire to the top, forcing a retreat. Now having lost all restraint, Titus ordered a massive assault through the breach, breaking through and taking more and more of the Temple Mount. And as the Jews were pushed back, a soldier grabbed a flaming piece of wood and threw it over the walls. Shortly after, the fire began spreading, engulfing the Holy of Holies and throwing the Jews in disarray. Titus then broke through the Temple Mount's walls and had his legions slaughter the remaining rebels. Titus would later crush the last pockets of rebel resistance, and as he was acclaimed imperator by his troops, he sacrificed a bull in the honor of Jupiter, thanking him for this victory. In total, 1.1 million Jews would die as a result, according to Josephus, a Jewish historian that remained loyal to the empire. But yeah, the Jews as a whole would yet continue on revolting.
Jewish historian who's loyal to the empire, okay.
Twice, but no more. Hadrian would make sure of that. Shh, we're getting there. But right now, it's all about Vespasian, Titus, and Domitian, as the three Flavians celebrated the founding of their new dynasty, showcasing mountains of Jewish gold, the menorah, and the Pentateuch as trophies. The new dynasty's first challenge would be to acquit the 40 billion sesterces worth of money the Roman state was in debt for. You can thank Vitellius' fat throat for that. Among his many tactics to raise money, Vespasian let the senators outbid each other to get positions in government, exploited monopolies for the state's benefit, hunted down corrupt tax collectors, and even taxed the plebs for their urine. Eventually, his son Titus, now the Praetorian prefect and fucking...
How the hell? Tax for the urine? So what, every time you go to bathroom you have to give money? That's just stupid.
The Jewish queen. He came to think of the taxes immoral, and when confronted by him, Vespasian gave Titus one of the urine tax money coins, and he was disgusted by its stench. Plebeian money always stinks. And speaking of plebs, Vespasian used all that Jewish gold to build a massive amphitheater to entertain the masses, then known as the Flavian Amphitheater, and now as the Colosseum. You think it sounds better? I think it sounds better. During all this, both of his sons would get married, Domitian to his lifelong love Longina, the daughter of Corbulo, whom would bear him a child, but he didn't survive long, and Titus married way back when with Marcia, a descendant of Uncus Marcius, and even better, the aunt of a young military genius named Trajan. Oh, can you feel it? We're almost there! Vespasian also allowed for great freedom of speech, even allowing some Greeks to link his lineage to one of Hercules' companions, so they could aggrandize their Greekoid hero. Not mentioned so far was the time when the Batavians, Germans, took advantage of the weakness caused by the civil war and revolted against the empire. Among the rebel leaders was a Gaul named Julius Sabinus. Now get this. He claimed that his great-grandmother had been one of Caesar's many cum-sluts. He claimed the entirety of Gaul for himself, even getting the Germs to help him out. They encircled 2 legions with their hordes, and once they agreed to accept the surrender, they had all legionnaires slaughtered. Never, ever trust a Germ. To deal with this Germanic shitshow, Vespasian sent his brother-in-law to crush the rebellion, humiliating the Batavians and forcing the Larper into exile. Domitian had been eager to help crush the revolt, but it had already been crushed by the time the letter arrived. Vespasian would then spend his later years enjoying life with his boomer friends, such as the naturalist Pliny the Elder, celebrating both peace and victory. And after nearly finishing the Colosseum, he was the one to add that solar crown to the Colossus of Nero, reassigning it in honor of Sol, the Romano-Trojan solar deity. He couldn't quite put it to words, but there was something about it that... Oh wait, this repetition reminds me, we have a conspiracy to cover right now. Yes, even with Vespasian being so likable, there were still those who would betray him, namely Caecina. Why? Who the fuck knows? Maybe he was half German or something. Sources disagree, but he didn't go anywhere, as Titus was there to do his job. Soon after, he invited Caecina for dinner, and while he ate, he stabbed him in the back. Let none say Titus didn't know irony.
Live by backstabbing other, get backstabbed. That's so, theatrical. That's the Game of Thrones of that time, apparently. You brought him to dinner and then backstab him. That's just...
And serving the empire diligently, he would hold a total of 7 consulships during his father's reign, always stepping out of power in the middle of his office in favor of Domitian, which only increased his disdain for the Senate even more. Back to the promises, Vespasian appointed Agricola as the governor of Britannia, whom had just married his daughter to Tacitus.
Isn't he the guy whose mother just died because of the fire?
The Tacitus, whom he would have recorded his attempt to live up to his mentor Paulinus. As Agricola arrived in the province, he started out by crushing a revolt by the recently conquered Welsh, where he later found an exiled Hibernian king called Twaffel, who asked for his help in retaking his throne. Agricola then crossed the sea no Roman had ever crossed, and ran a punitive campaign.
Okay, I'm gonna be honest, I get it, this is satire, it's sake of comedy. But anybody except Romans, the level of reference and racist things that this guy uses, I'm surprised how YouTube didn't just, cancel this channel altogether. Because YouTube is really strong when stuff like this comes. I think that's why he gave the disclaimer. YouTube was getting a bit too much. Maybe YouTube gave some notice to him or something, like chill down or something.
Spain, Hibernia, Proto-Ireland, that is, installing Twaffel back in power. But he never bothered actually conquering the place. Ireland was, is, and will always be worthless. And as Agricola bravely pushed the borders of civilization further north, he was suddenly attacked by the honorless Picts of Caledonia, the Proto-Scots of Proto-Scotland, that is. Agricola then demolished the Scots in the battlefield, but every time he did so, they cowardly fled to hide in the highlands. Civilizing them would prove an arduous task. Back to the Eternal City, we can see the years haven't been as kind to the Emperor as they have to his friends, now suffering from a terminal case of severe diarrhea. As his life neared its end, Vespasian proclaimed that an emperor ought to die on his feet. Getting up, and after taking another massive liquid shit, the truth dawned on him. Dear me, I think I'm becoming a god. Then falling dead on the embrace of his caretakers. After presiding over his funeral...
Yeah, that's true, isn't it? Back then, diarrhea was just fatal, wasn't it? I mean, it just gets all the liquid out of your body, all the nutrition out of your body, eventually you die. That's just effed up, man. This is the, really effed up way to die for an emperor.
Titus succeeded him as emperor, later expelling Berenice from Rome, fearing that he would fall prey to her eastern temptations. To further celebrate his victory in Judea, he built the Ark of Titus, the glory of which would make generations of Romaboos build replicas for themselves. And as far as the Senate went, they sucked Titus's cock like you wouldn't believe. And there's good reason for it. He abolished treason trials, never exiled anyone over anything, didn't kill a single one of them, and one day, after having given no favors to any of his friends, he deemed it a wasted day. And while everything was going dandy, Vulcanus was sleeping underneath the Vesuvius, until a sword fell into his head. Woken up, he realized it was a gladiatorial sword, aka a slave sword, aka filthy slaves have been fucking about on top of his property. Exploding in anger, Vulcanus made the Vesuvius erupt in a furious rage. I fucking told you this would happen. I really fucking did. Among
another fire, oh my
God.
god.
The Elder, whom died trying to rescue his friends from such a fate. Several thousands of plebs also died, but who gives a shit? Well, Titus kinda did, diverting massive imperial funds to help out the worthless masses. And
Look at that.
Titus kinda did,
Look
diverting massive imperial funds to help out the worthless masses. And to open up some fresh wounds, another great fire broke out in Rome, this time burning Agrippa's pantheon to the ground. And while Titus put down the fires, in the east, a man proclaiming to be Nero Reborn emerged, gathering some gullible Greekoids to follow him as he laid claim to the empire. Plenty of Julian LARPing today, isn't there? But this one was no different. He would flee his way into Parthia, where he met his end. And after calming down the fires, Titus ordered a massive bathing complex built, further indulging the plebs with the architectural wonders of civilization, making him even more loved and respected than his father. But after just 2 years as emperor, while traveling in Sabine lands, Titus grew increasingly weak and fragile. As he laid in bed, realizing death was near, he proclaimed to have made only one mistake in his life, and then died. I believe we all know what he meant. What killed him, you ask? Well, Berenice was quite bitter about being scorned, you see, and that whole destruction of Jerusalem thing too, I suppose. So she used her Jewish magic to have a fly get into Titus's brain, and slowly chewing it over the years.
Of course.
Minerva isn't the goddess of wisdom for no reason. Domitian was then acclaimed the new emperor, and as a prelude to his reign, Domitian had his elder brother deified just like his father, without even consulting the Senate for approval. Because if there is one thing to be sure,
it's just every emperor just come and say this was a god and that was a god, like apparently, yeah, why not their god? But even in the history, nobody considered them god, even for Romans. Nowadays, people know Jupiter, Neptune, and all this. Yeah, so they were god. Zeus and what the hell is that? The Greek gods. So these are gods, sure. History remembers that, but history does not remember these emperors being god. So what was the point of them doing that? I think it's the same thing that I think they were doing. So they can claim to be bloodline of gods, and so people would follow them and not stab them in the back. I think it was all politics.
About Domitian was that he absolutely despised the Senate. After years of seeing how the senators treacherously bent over for any usurper who took over power and did nothing but to serve as bootlickers for both his father and brother, he denounced the senators as what they really were.
I mean, that is true, isn't it? I was, getting pissed off at like how people are just stabbing each other back and claiming themselves to be emperors. Senate should be intervene and say that we'll say who's emperor or not. You can't just come here, kill somebody and just claim you to be an emperor. We have to see the bloodline. We have to see who's the next heir, who makes out things like that, man. Otherwise, what's the point of Senate? Senate, just anybody somewhat powerful comes and like, I'm the emperor, and the Senate's like, alright, you're the emperor. That's just effed up.
War, treacherous parasites of no honor, being nothing but an insult to the noble senators of old, of which only Nerva and a few others still lived up to. Being the huge Augustus Buddha he was, Domitian sought to emulate the original princeps in every possible way. He both micromanaged and macromanaged the empire to run as efficiently as possible, elected the most capable men as possible to serve in positions of government, used taxes to build several projects for the public good, threw games constantly to entertain the masses, and of course, persecuted degenerates without mercy. Also, much like Augustus, Domitian spent a lot of time in the provinces, making it clear that imperial authority went with him, and the senators could fucking suck it, often raising their taxes, confiscating their property, and limiting the size of their wine farms, just to fuck with them. Such was Domitian's hatred for the Senate, he would occasionally invite the senators for dinner in a black room, with tombstones as chairs with their names carved on them. Convinced they would be killed, Domitian let them go peacefully.
Alright, this might be a naive thing to say, but for a long time now, emperors have despised Senate. And Senate has always just, bent over to emperors. So why not this emperor just went like, there is no Senate. I'm, disbanding the Senate now. I'm the true emperor, I'm the true king. I'll come up with what to do, what not to do. We don't need Senate or something like that. Why does Senate still exist? Well, the emperors were fearing that if a disband Senate, people will revolt or something. What was that?
Satisfied with having tasted their fear, he then used his staggering IQ to fix the inflated economy, increasing the purity of the coins from 90% to 98% silver. And if you're curious why you should care, it's because he will be the only emperor to actually fix inflation like this, with one very notable exception down the line. Then using said fixed economy to rebuild the Temple of Jupiter.
How does that solve inflation again?
And then raising the common legionnaires' pay by 33%, making them love him unconditionally. Jupiter remained pissed though. However, much like Augustus, Domitian was deeply concerned about the Germanic threat to civilization. For if not even the divine Augustus could civilize those chaotic animals, then Domitian settled with the next best thing, pushing the Germans as far away from Rome as possible, and building a series of fortifications to connect the Rhine and Danube rivers, later known as the Limes Germanicus. And while the walls were still being built, Domitian was viciously attacked by a large German horde, provoked by the smell of constructions nearby. The emperor then obliterated the barbarians and kicked them back to their mud huts. He would later celebrate a well-deserved triumph for his victory, and be overjoyed with good news from Britannia. For this whole time, Agricola was fighting his way through Scotland, finishing the conquest of Britannia for Rome, with the exception of the Highlands, where the remaining Proto-Scots still cowardly hidden, but Agricola decided to let them be, letting those animals claim to be unconquered in their reservation areas. He would then spend his later years trying to civilize as many Britons as possible, but there would always be left a job half done. And as a reward for his efforts, Domitian recalled him to celebrate his accomplishments, letting the Scots slowly retake their lands. After all, Scotland was, is, and will always be worthless. But not all barbaric shitholes were worthless. Dacia comes to mind. The kingdom in the Carpathian Mountains was filled with gold mines, and sadly, Dacians. They would occasionally cross the Danube and raid Moesia along faction tribes, cowering away before they met any Roman retaliation. But it all changed with Decabulus, a barbarian king that killed the governor Moesia and united the Dacians under his rule. Insulted by their actions, Domitian sent the Praetorian prefect to push them back, which he did, but as he encroached further, the mischievous Dacians ambushed them, slaughtering his legions and taking the Praetorian Eagle standard. Domitian then took matters into his own hands, crossing with 3 legions and continually pushing Decabulus back, and as he was about to crush him, another revolt broke out in the Rhine. Domitian was then forced to give lighter terms for a quick peace, appointing Decabulus as a client king, and granting him with the funds necessary to protect his borders against the Germs, which he instead, of course, would use to fund yet another invasion of the empire.
I mean, obviously, that was stupid of him to give money like that. He just strong-armed him. He just basically went there and fought and strong-armed him. Now he has a revolt somewhere, so he's just gonna give money to defend against Germans. Of course, he's gonna use that money to attack you.
What happened in the Rhine wasn't interesting at all. Just our average butthurt senatorial conspiracy to score some petty revenge against the emperor, even allying with the Germs to carry it through. Their plan was to let the Germs cross the Rhine and join up with his legions. but Jupiter, at Minerva's request, denied their efforts, summoning a storm over the river, thus making a crossing possible. But the real reason why the revolt failed was that Domitian sent none other than Trajan himself to crush the revolt, which he accomplished flawlessly. Unfortunately...
Alright, who is Trajan? He was putting emphasis when the name was introduced, and now none other than Trajan. I don't know who the Trajan is. Is he significant in the future episode or something?
The other legate heading the expedition, being a conspirator himself, had all the incriminating documents burned, saving his fellow traitors back in Rome from being discovered. To restore order...
Even in Rome, people are shredding evidence, apparently.
Domitian assumed the consulship alongside Nerva, and began purging the Senate of any senators he deemed traitorous, later awarding Trajan with his own consulship. Well deserved. Despite his utter hatred for them and great justifications for it, Domitian wouldn't purge much. Hell, fucking Claudius purged more people than he did. But that didn't stop those parasites from fearing and hating him. Indeed, they came up with a plot to kill Domitian. Part of the plan relied on how Domitian was long ago prophesied.
Claudius built aqueducts and those great Roman roads, man. Why does he talk like Claudius was nobody? If anything, anybody right now remembers is that achievements of aqueducts and things like, damn, Romans were so advanced. What do you know about Egyptian thing? The pyramids, they even stand now, it's astonishing. What do you know of Roman things? Aqueducts and their structures. So Claudius was a really important figure of the past, and he talks like some idiot. He wasn't some idiot, man, he was smart.
To meet his death at midday, making him lower his guard after such time had passed. And recently, Domitian had been visited by Minerva in a dream, informing him Jupiter wouldn't allow her to protect him anymore, being left abandoned by the gods. Feeling vulnerable, he kept asking a servant what time it was before leaving for work, and him, being among the senatorial plotters, lied, saying it was past noon. Relaxed, Domitian returned to his office to attend the Empire. He was then approached by another senatorial conspirator, claiming to have discovered a plot against the emperor, but the injury was a fake. And as Domitian read the document, the conspirator took the dagger he had hidden and stabbed the emperor, failing to actually kill him in one hit, only then calling the other conspirators to join the attack, collectively stabbing Domitian to death. Yet another good emperor.
Another thing like Caesar, huh? Multiple stabbings to kill him. From now on, emperor should be like, nobody stands behind me, I don't care what. Anybody stands behind me, I'm gonna kill him without even thinking. Because people are getting stabbed too much.
Victim of conspiracy and assassination. Funny how the Praetorians remained loyal this time. One less though. And say, speaking of good emperors. Ciao ciao. Yeah, plenty of bullshit in the outro too, you're right. Let's go over it quickly, shall we? Here's my alt YouTube account for special vids and random stuff like that. Here's my new Patreon, where you can send me your shekels. There's my BitChute, cause why not? And here's both my...
This was an awesome episode, man. I love Colosseum and everything. This new dynasty, let's call it, was more, stable and did very good things. But urine text, how does that even work? Damn, man. People went to toilet and he texted them for that or something. That's just effed up, man. Who is Trajan? I think in the past episode he also talked about it. Right now, if he comes there, see, he's coming. Who is Trajan? Is he going to be too big in the future? I have no idea about him. Whatever brief knowledge of Rome I had, I think that's exhausted. Now in the future, I don't know what's going to happen. Only thing I know about is Commodus, because I saw the movie Gladiator, obviously. But even that, I have not much detail about that. Or at least there was less backstabbing than it was in the previous episode. Previous episode was just like, I was just getting dizzy, like, this guy came, this guy gone, this guy came, another one come, this died, oh my god. Poison, death, poison. At least that's less now. The next video is the 5 good emperors. So apparently they are good. Or good in the eyes of Doherty, I don't know. We'll see though. Alright people, if you like this reaction, don't forget to like and subscribe and show your support. I'll see you next time.